Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We are back on the dev server and it's time to have a look at some extras which are coming alongside a bunch of the new vehicles and also some new mechanics that are coming in. First of all, before we get into anything, there is a game which is free right now on Steam. It is called the Space Crew Legendary Edition. You remember Bomber Crew? Well, Space Crew Legendary Edition is kind of the sequel to Bomber Crew that the guys made. It is free completely right now to own on Steam. It's the Legendary Edition, so you have all the extra stuff in it. So make sure to pick it up and play it. I had a great time with it. It's super fun, and if you're a fan of Bomber Crew and stuff like that, you'll really enjoy Space Crew too. So make sure to check it out. Anyway, back into the game. It's time to go through some new features. First of all, they brought in a bunch of new tutorials. So these are all tutorials about kind of missiles and all of the general mechanics around them. You can either find them when you unlock a modification and you want to test it, you'll find it there. But if you just want to find the tutorials themselves, you can actually find them here in the tutorials tab. So all of the general different kind of, well, I suppose, mechanics that are in the game, and then also a bunch of different platforms, you can just test them and kind of understand how your key bindings work, how the missiles themselves work, and go through there, which is great. Then you remember how they added for ground vehicles a bunch of different little kind of videos for each of the modifications to kind of show what the modifications do? Well, guess what? They did it as well for the planes and also for helicopters. There is a bunch of different animations that are around. They're probably not as sophisticated as some of the other ones that are in, but I do like some of them, such as the belts ones and stuff. What I'll try and do is I'll try and do a full video going through all of the little videos that they've added, because there is a ton of really cool ones that are around the place for helicopters and also airplanes. Another thing they also added for both is customizable fuel loads. So you know how they said that they would add in a fuel slider for fuel? Well, guess what? They've just done it straight away. So you can have your minimum load, you can have your standard load or your maximum load, or what you can do between your minimum and between your maximum, you can pick which load you kind of want. So in a way, you can customize the amount of fuel that you want going around, which is really good and really nice to see. So, in general, the other thing as well for fuel control is if you have your throttle attached to a scroll wheel, you'll actually be able to now, instead of just go 100% afterburner or 0% afterburner, which is what you could do before, now you can actually go between the stages of the afterburner depending on the sensitivity of your scroll wheel. And then if you go back, it'll just go straight down to 0 again. So yeah, pretty nice there. Makes it a little bit easier to use instead of having to set up other key bindings to sort that out. So not too bad. So customizable fuel loads and also the way to set different stages of the afterburner, I think is pretty nice. And also on top of this, you have a huge change, a massive one, an absolutely monumental change. And it is for, of course, the Zed T3A2. This one, they've now added 1580 gems instead of 12. Absolutely massive. Not really, it's still a bad vehicle. Still won't be very good, but at least you have some more ammo now. So at least there's that. What's actually really cool as well is they've started kind of goofing around with reload mechanics too. They've added a few different ones in to do with capture points, and this will help a lot of AAs out and also a lot of other machines. So one of the cool things about the kind of AA setup is the fact that you have a little bit of an issue where you have to get rid of a whole belt before you can reload, right? And a lot of these machines, like if you have a look at this Gepard, for example, they have 640 rounds in their belt. So you have to get rid of all of that before you can reload. Well, guess what? That is no more. Even if you shoot a little bit, you can see there that it's going to start reloading the belt that you're using. So you can automatically reload a belt while you're still using that belt, and that means that it will go full even, you know, even after a period of time. So you can see here it's at 583 on the left hand side, and now it's back up to 640. How cool is that? So you can literally just sit on a cap and reload as you go. Now this works with not just guns, it also works with missiles and everything else. What also happens on a cap now is if you're reloading and you decide to move, then now you don't actually lose your reload. Instead, it stays stationary, and that means when you stop moving, again, you can actually continue the reload, which is two huge quality of life fixes, especially for AAs and other vehicles which have autocannons and they have to like kind of shoot things around, which is really cool. So big ups, massive there. Really like that setup. There is also a bunch of different bombs that were added to a ton of different things. To start off with, we have the Ju-87, the good old B2. This one finally got the 1,000 kilo bomb. So a lot of the other Ju-87s got it, but now the B2, which was one of the ones which only got the 500, they've finally given the 1,000 kilo to, so that one will be better in lower tier matches. The other thing is the F-86 F-35, which is the premium saber for the Americans, and also the F-86 F-40s, which are kind of the export one that you see in a lot of other tech trees. So for example, Japan has the F-40. They've added a set of bombs to it. So not the 1,000-pounders, they were already here, but actually the 750-pound M117 cone bombs have been added to them. The BB-1 and the Su-2 series of aircraft for the USSR, they've also got themselves an upgrade where they now have access to 500 kilo bombs, which they didn't have before. So this is once again just a huge change to these guys, giving them a lot more CAS ability. And then also the J29F for Sweden, the kind of afterburning J29 in the tech tree, they've added a ton of different rockets to it. So instead of just having the RB-24s and the M55s, you also have all of this set up too, which to me is actually really good. The Vampires as well, specifically the Vampire FB5 and also the FB52A, they have 500 pounders which have been added to them, so maybe that'll make it a little bit easier to grind them. I think in general it's probably better just to use, you know, the 1,000 pounders once again, but if you haven't got it ground out, then I suppose, you know, it's a little bit easier to do so now. And the Ki-61s, so the Japanese aircraft, the Ki-61Te, and also, oh no, not those ones actually, the Ki-61Hei, and also the Ki-61Ko and Otsu, their HO-103s, the number of rounds that they have been massively reduced. So instead of 400 rounds per gun, they are actually only at 250. So that hurts them quite a lot, and it hurts a lot of their longevity when they're in the air. That actually does make quite a large difference to them. The Tu-14T, one of the bombs on it has actually been replaced, so they haven't added a bomb, they've taken away one and added another. This one is the 1000 M43 has been added instead of the standard 1000, which was there before. The Tu-4 has had its bombs replaced, so instead of it only having access to 500s, it now has access to the 500 M26, but for some reason it isn't showing it properly. I'm sure that's a bit of a bug. And then also the CBera, which is in the British tech tree. This CBera has access to a 4,000 pound bomb, but they've changed which 4,000 pounder it is. Instead of it being the Mark II, which it was before, it is actually now the Mark IV. So definitely different, and you know, should have slightly different capabilities. The Meteor F Mark III, which is one of my favorite jets in the game, they actually gave it access to RP3s somewhere, but also it seems like they gave it bombs, but I don't know when that kind of happened. Oh no, sorry, the Meteor F Mark III has access to 1,000 pounders now. My bad, I was looking at the wrong thing. The Meteor F Mark VIII G41K, that one has access to RP3s. So one of the later ones, which is this one, this now has access to 16 RP3s instead, so improving its kind of CAS abilities. And then the F104S ASA, of all things, the good old one right here, they've added a metric ton of random armaments to it. The central fuselage pylon can now carry a bunch of the different bombs where it wasn't able to before. So you now have extra CAS abilities for that one. Then the JS-39, they now have additional drop tanks. On the Hungarian one, you can see here, it has access, to the lovely kind of, I suppose, insignia on it, but every Gripen now should have drop tanks, which it didn't have before. The other Swedish vehicle that has drop tanks now is the J-35s. They actually have the 510-litre external tanks added to them here. You can see them in this setup. And then also the F-14, which is an incredibly hungry aircraft. This also has these two additional fuel tanks, which are sat here, which will help it out quite a lot. And some other vehicles got access to some pretty cool stuff too. Ejection seats. So remember when they added those? Yeah, pretty cool, right? They have continued to expand the ejection seats that are available. And on the vehicles that have them, or at least this time that got them, the A7D, the A7E, the F100A, the F100D, and also the A6E tram. So if you're using any of those vehicles, you will see the ejection, which is kind of cool. You can see here on the A7E, it has it available, which is pretty nice, and hopefully that gets continually expanded as we go along. And a huge change to naval has happened. So this will affect all of the larger ships in naval. There was a limitation when it came to the game on how much damage you could kind of do, or how many fragments you could have. And it says the number of shell fragments from ship guns has been increased. Previously, due to technical limitations, the number of fragments that a projectile was capable of producing was lower than it should have been. This was compensated by an increase in destructive power of some fragments in the nose and side dispersion cones. So therefore, now it should be more realistically set. It should be better in the way that it's all sorted and the way that these shells do damage. So it should basically just have more fragments and shouldn't just do specific damage in general areas, but instead do more overall damage in where the shell goes off. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully that works, and hopefully it doesn't crash the game. There's also another part of the damage model that's been improved for naval, and it's in sea mines. So sea mines no longer actually detonate when they get touched by allied ships, which is really cool. And now it's time to show you a new fire control system for the naval side of things. So I'll just do it with a ship which has, a pretty good fire rate, just to kind of show you what goes on with it. We'll do the Midshare, since that has a pretty quick fire rate. So in the upper left corner of the screen, they've added this thing. You see it at the top? Pretty cool, right? So if you actually target an enemy, so it measures the range, what it'll do is first of all tell you where you've targeted it, like what angle it is away from you. It'll show you also the angle of the ship itself, how fast it's going, and also the heading angle of it. And if you fire at the ship, what it'll show you is actually where your shells land. So in this regard, you can see in the top left, one hit, one missed. Kind of cool, right? So they have like this type of setup with it, which I think is really cool. And it kind of tells you where you hit the vehicle, tells you where to aim, and also at the same time tells you the angle that the vehicle is at. You really can't get any better than that. And it also shows you where you are angled compared to north, just like the other ship. So a lot of really cool stuff there. I don't know how to switch it with the radar, because obviously, you have the search radar in that quadrant too. But yeah, I'm sure at some point I'll figure it out, and then I'll make it a little bit easier. But overall, this will need like a little bit more looking into, but you can see how cool this is, right? Like you can see in the top left how much information that it gives you on what you're attacking, what you're doing, and then going from there. So pretty cool. That is all set up like that. They've also at the same time added a few more interfaces to the game, not just from the naval point of view. They've also added a new targeting camera interface for TV-guided missiles. So, for example, on this vehicle here, the Buccaneer, you can actually use it differently compared to what it was before. It's not too crazy, like it's not something to really blow your head away or anything like that, but basically it displays the viewing angle of a narrow field of view, and also a target acquisition can be turned off by moving the seeker direction indicator from the center of the captured target. So basically it's not anything too nuts. It's just kind of the same what we've seen before. I don't know if it's fully working right now and how it's all supposed to be set up, but basically you like target here and then you look at it and then you sort it out. It shows you this and then it gives you the target, and then you can fire whenever you really feel like, if you actually have the missiles set up. So yeah, pretty much as simple as that. Very similar to CCRP and how it all works. You can do it all from the third person point of view like this, but yeah, it's at least something that's worth looking at and working out how it goes. As long as you yourself are interested in it, you know, it's something to sort out. So yeah, cool little setup, and I'm sure people will use it to great effect in the higher echelons as always. Also, what they've done is in the combat interface settings, you can show ammunition type in the destruction log and show squadron names in the destruction log too. So if you go to the combat interface settings, or the battle interface ones, I think they're said, and you can see them here. So now you can actually change what you see in the destruction log. So if you see the vehicle, player names, ammunition type, squadron name, they're all on by default, but you can always turn them off if you want to, if you feel like it's clogging your screen, or if there's too much stuff going on. You can also hide the interface in the cockpit in helicopter battles now, so you can just see the HUD itself if you want to. And also at the same time, you can now, in the graphical settings, there's an option to select on which monitor the client will run has been added. So if you run multiple monitors, you can actually pick which one you can actually go for in the future. So if you run two, you can just pick which one you want it on, instead of having to do some jerry-rigging, which is something that at least I have to do quite a decent amount of the time. Then, on top of this, you have the training missions we talked about, and a few changes to ground realistic. So, supposedly they've changed Hurtgun Forest. Had a look around it, didn't really see too many changes. Supposedly they've fixed the spawns, or made it so the spawns are a little bit more enclosed, so you can't spawn camp as easily. I thought they did that last time, so maybe they just improved it a little bit. But one of the things they've done is with the nuke carriers. So with the ability to fly a nuke carrying aircraft without leaving the current control vehicle is added. So they've given you a hot switch. Once you get the amount of points, it will just give you the option to be able to hot switch into the nuke carrier, and that means your vehicle doesn't die, because for some reason people were worried about their KD when it came to these types of things. And it also means that nuke carriers are going to get really fast onto the battlefield, and you know, you won't take a loss in or you won't take a hit in your setup. So that's pretty much how it all works. Then also in ground realistic, the detection zones for enemy aircraft have been added near air spawn zones and helipads. So very similar to how ground zones have a bunch of changes to them too. The good old air zones will have the same in ground realistic, so you can't just camp the enemy air area, and you can't camp the helicopters. You'll be able to be seen on the map. Because of this, they've actually removed the air defense from helipads, because basically it was just there to kind of show what was near in the area, so not actually what was, you know, it didn't actually destroy anything or hurt anything. It just kind of marked on the map where things are by, you know, firing around it, which is kind of interesting. So there is that as well. The other part is some sound changes. So they changed the 2A70 gun, which is on the BMP. This is the 100mm cannon, which is on the BMP. The BMP3. They probably gave the ZBD the same sound, but it sounds okay. Sounds pretty meaty for a 100mm, which is basically just a tube. Yeah, you can see here, this is what it sounds like, the good old potato launcher. Like, it's nothing too crazy. Overall, I think it's fine. Just a good old spud gun. And then also, for sound changes, they have improved the Leclerc engine and tracks, the AMX-30 engine and tracks, and the C1 Ariete engine and tracks too. So a bunch of different vehicles got their updates in that regard, and do sound much more like themselves instead of other vehicles which they were pretty much set up on. The US ground commander also voice has been changed. The Norwegian vehicles actually now have their voice lines too. So the Leopard 1A5, the premium, now actually speaks Norwegian, which is kind of nice. So yeah, overall, quite a lot of changes, quite a lot of extras, and quite a lot of things going on. This is quite a heavy dev server compared to some of the other ones that we've seen, but with a lot of changes that may not be as simple as you may see. And there is one last thing that I want to show you just at the end of this. And this may kind of tickle your fancy as we go into kind of a new world for general stuff. One of the coolest things, at least that I've seen the last little bit, is the addition of a new part of the replay system. So what they've done here is they've added kind of a overlay to a lot of the replay. So you can see here, this is just a mission editor I did earlier. This is the F20, and now this is the overlay. You can actually change all of the filters if you want. You can change the marker filters, sensor filters, and the weapons parameters. You can actually see where the radar is looking of the aircraft. You can see where the enemy is, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Like, when a missile is fired, it kind of shows you when a missile is fired. It tells you how fast people are going in comparison to the vehicle that you're looking at, and also has so much information. It's pretty cool. So I've got a feeling that a lot of this is going to be used in the future. You can see my radar is locked on here. A lot of this is going to be used in the future to be able to, you know, do some pretty cool videos, and also show, you know, general movements and how to screw around and have a bit of fun. You can also see the F-16s over here all running into each other and dying, which is kind of interesting to see. But yeah, that is something that is available. It also tracks missiles. So if you see here, I think I fire some missiles in. Add some enemies. Yeah, there you go. So there's the AIM-9L. It tells you the seeker. It tells you the distance traveled, time, overload, AOA, everything like that. And you can actually follow it in to see it like hit a target. And if you actually turn off this tag view, you can't really see any of that, right? But this is what's going on the other end. Pretty nice, right? And so yeah, look forward to this. Welcome to the new age of War Thunder. Pretty cool, innit? As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Schnitzel Stroker, Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Carrion Crow, Nicholas Richardson, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, B. Young, Opium Prime, Masonocrat, Lafouche, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.